week we started talking about this idea of pausing, of taking time to stop and just be in the moment. Most of us, even you as teenagers, the truth is, and I'm sure you're going to back this up, most of us are living our lives at a completely unsustainable pace. We're living our lives at a pace that we just simply cannot keep up. Does anybody ever feel like that? Does anybody not feel like that? And I would like to learn your secrets. Yeah, we're living at this pace where we're just constantly on the go, and we very rarely take any time to just stop, to just pause, and to just be in the moment. And so our temptation that we talked about last week is to be physically present in a moment. But I think all of us have had this experience where maybe we're talking to somebody, we're in a conversation. Let's say Julie's sitting down here on the front. Let's say Julie and I are in a conversation, and I'm sure all of us have had this experience where Julie could be looking at me and I'm talking and she sees that my mouth is moving and she's nodding her head, but her mind is totally somewhere else. All of us have had experiences like that, probably more often than we'd like to have, where we're physically somewhere, but we're not mentally there, we're not spiritually there, we're not emotionally there, we're just not all there. And so we asked last week, what would it look like, what would it take for you to simply pause? Just take 10 minutes every day where you simply pause and live in the moment that you're in right now. I think that would feel pretty good, because if we're honest, I think most of us would admit that we don't have a lot of times like that in our lives where we can just sit and be still and be where we are. And so today we're going to talk more about pausing, but not just for the sake of pausing. Today we're going to talk about the fact that the better we get at pausing, the more often we pause, the more we're able to just be in the moment, the more we're able to find the presence of God. The better we are at pausing, just being where we are, the better we become at finding God. How many of you have friends? I've got friends like this who are able to talk really clearly about the times that they've been able to see God. How many of you have ever heard somebody talk about a time when they've been able to see God pretty clearly? I think most of us have been like that. How many of you have ever been frustrated by the fact that you can't seem to do the same thing? Yeah, I find myself frustrated all the time because I hear people talk about the ways and places they've seen God at work, and I just can't seem to do it. It's almost like I believe that they've really seen and experienced something, but for me, who's ever had an experience, and maybe it's just me, but I've been wearing my glasses, and I've asked someone, have you seen my glasses? While they're on my face. Maybe I'm the only one who's ever had that experience, but this happens at my house all the time. There will be something out out in the open, and I'll be like, Amanda, have you seen my shoes? She's like, do you mean the ones that are right by your feet right now? Yes, those are actually the ones that I'm looking for. Sometimes I feel it's like that, like something is right, like God is there. I believe that God is there. I believe that people are able to see God, and it's close to me, but for some reason I just can't seem to see it. And when I read the Old Testament, I get even more frustrated. Because in the Old Testament, there's story after story after story after story of God speaking directly to people. And people walking around, and all of a sudden God just speaks to them. Or some big miraculous event happens, and it's really clear that God has done something. And that frustrates me because I always find myself asking, God, why can't you speak like that to me? Why won't you make something miraculous happen in front of me? Why won't you just talk to me in the car, like through the speakers, other than I would wreck? But it would still be really cool if I'm just tuning a station and all of a sudden it's like, Travis, this is God. I mean, I'd need to clean my seat, but it'd still be really, really, really awesome. And so last week we talked about Moses. And in Exodus chapter 24, there's this moment where Moses is the guy that God had chosen to lead the Israelite people. Moses was a busy guy. He was responsible for leading hundreds of thousands of people through the desert, through the wilderness, helping them find food, settling disputes between them. I mean, he had stuff going on all the time. And what God said to him in chapter 24 was, Moses, I want you to come up on this mountain and just be on the mountain. But what we're going to talk about with Moses today happened several chapters before that, in chapter 3. And the backstory of this is Moses, in the first 2 chapters, you find out a lot of things about Moses. It's actually a really good story. You should read it sometime. But what you find out about Moses in chapter 2 is Moses kills an Egyptian. Moses, he sees an Egyptian beating a fellow Jew, and Moses goes up and is like, you should stop, and he doesn't stop. And so he kills him, and then he hides him, and then he's like, oh no, this was not good. And so he runs out into the desert, and interesting story, he runs out into the desert, and there's this, I think it's a well, and he meets his boo, and they get married, and then it's beautiful. Actually, in the Old Testament, this is not related to this morning, but in the Old Testament, pretty much anytime you see a guy and a girl meet at a well, like, they're probably going to get married. I don't know why that happens, so guys, go hang out at the water fountain. School. I just think that's the place to be. Anyway, so Moses, he meets his wife, they get married, and then just as part of the deal, because he's run away from his former life where he killed somebody, so Moses ends up as a shepherd, and he's tending these flocks out in the desert, and that's where the story picks up. And so we're gonna read it. Could you, if you're back there at the computer. It says, now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. I want to point out some things here that I think are really important. So what did Moses do in this story? First, he saw that something strange was happening. He saw it. He noticed it. There was a bush burning. It wasn't burning up. He thought it was really interesting. And so he stopped what he was doing. He walked over to the bush. He looked at the bush. And then God spoke to him out of the bush. I think that's really important for us to notice in this story, because it wasn't just like, explosion, bush, God speaking. No. There was a bush on fire. Moses had to stop what he was doing. He had to walk over. He had to pause and pay attention to it. And then God spoke to him from the bush. How many of you feel like you're just trying to make it through the day alive because you've got so much going on? Anybody ever feel like that? You're just trying to make it through the day alive because there's so much going on. Cole, can you come help me? I mean, you've got school stuff, and then maybe you have some chores to do at home. You need to go Krogering with your parents. I'm a guy, so I have some I got some guy stuff I got to do. But then I've got sports, and then I need to be there for my. Well, actually, no. I want to go hang out with my friends, and we're going to go bowling. All right. And then I need my friends. I need to be a good friend to my friends, so that there's a tissue box, I think, down there. I want to hold it out. I want to hold it out here in my hand. Yeah. Okay. But out. I want it to face the people. I want them to see the tissue. Oh. Just yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. And then I want to play my guitar, because that's like my hobby. That's what I really like to do. Just go ahead and maybe. Yeah. I think just through. No. I want it up here. Maybe through between the moose and my head. No, I mean, not around my neck, Cole. Put the whole guitar, just lay it up, yeah. That is really good. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so, I'm good. Yeah. Now, here's the deal. We get frustrated because we can't see God in front of us. We get frustrated because we're like, why was there a burning bush in the Old Testament? Where are you now, God? But the truth is, there might be burning bushes everywhere around us, and we just can't see them because we've got so much stuff going on. Because there are so many things in the way. Because we never take a break from all the things we're trying to do, and we completely miss out on the presence of God right in front of our eyes. Where'd that thing go? I don't think we miss God's presence in our lives because God is absent. And I don't think we miss God's presence in the world because God's not there. I think we miss God's presence in the world because we don't take the time to look for God. I think we miss God's presence and we miss God speaking to us because we don't take the time to listen. And when we stop, just like Moses did, we find God in some really unexpected places. This is what happened to Moses that day. God said, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place you're standing is holy ground." This was the place that Moses was every single day. This wasn't a new place or a special place. This is where Moses worked. And when Moses took some time and paused and looked and listened, God said, "This place where you're standing, this place where you work every day, this desert, this desolate place is holy ground." And so often we miss it. It reminds me, a couple years ago, I was training to run in a 5K. And people like me need to train to run a 5K. I know there are people who are like, I could just go run a 5K right now. I can't. I'm old. So I was training to run in a 5K. We'd gone to visit Amanda's aunt who lived in Illinois. And I went out to run that morning because it was like a week away, and I didn't want to miss a workout and die the day of the 5K because I hadn't trained. And so I go out. I'm not really familiar. It's a small town in Illinois. I'm not really familiar with it. I think I know how she was like, cut across that field back there and then take a right and you'll end up here on this street and then circle back around and it'll be the street by my house and then you can turn here and here and here and you'll be back at my house. And I was like, okay, cool. So I took off, put on my iPod, I took off running, had been running for quite a while, looked at my watch, realized we were leaving to go back home that morning, realized it was time for me to get back. I wasn't exactly sure where I was, but I looked and I saw this field. There was a fence and a field and I thought, I'm usually pretty good with direction, and I thought, if I just cut across this field right here, I think I can get there. So I cut across this field, or I jumped over the fence. I'm running in this field. I'm noticing there's like some sand out on this field, but I'm not really paying attention. I'm just running, and all of a sudden I look, and there is a golf cart driving up next to me. And it's like, hey! The golf cart didn't say hey. The guy driving the golf cart was like, hey, you're in the middle of the 9th fairway, and you're probably about to get hit in the head with a golf ball. And so I finally looked and paid attention and realized, sure enough, yeah, I'm in the middle of a golf course. And there were some people trying to tee off, and they saw some random guy running. Anyway, now, the fact that I didn't notice that it was a golf course didn't mean that it wasn't a golf course. It was still a golf course whether or not I noticed it. It's kind of like, there's this old saying, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? That's a stupid question, unless you really like that question. And then it's not. It's a great question.